Sound check. Sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Clean. Cleanest. Naisikiaje? Iko sawa? Eh? Hapo sawa, yeah? Mr. Mustard Yellow, how you doing? Good morning. Day 2. Baptism by fire, no? Iko sawa? Sawa.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning once again. It's a great pleasure that we are being joined by our Principal Secretary, the State Department of Public Works, for this very important activity. And again, also, your presence matters a lot, and we are grateful that you can join us on this second day of construction industry research dissemination. Before we are able to proceed, I would like to invite Engineer Olela to come here and lead us with a word of prayer. Karibu sana, Engineer Olela.
Good morning. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you this morning for giving us a chance once again to gather. And as we begin, we invite your presence in this place, that you will guide us through this day and the proceedings of this gathering, that all will go as desired. We pray that it shall be well, even as we discuss the matters that relate to construction industry in Kenya, that Lord, you will direct and lead these discussions. We thank you and we give you praise. In Jesus' name we pray.
Thank you very much, Engineer Walela. Once again, our Principal Secretary, State Department of Public Works, Major Retired Daktari Kihalangwa, our Board Chairman or Chairperson, QS David Gaido, all the board members present here, our Executive Director, Engineer Maurice Akech, NCA senior leadership, that is the management, and the staff, and again also the research discussants, all invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, once again, good morning. Good morning once again. Now, we are here on our second day. This is the second day of construction industry information dissemination. And we are pleased that you found time to be together with us. And we believe that this will be a greater day than yesterday. Bona PS, yesterday we did very well, and it is worth noting that the hashtag NCA Research Forum Dissemination was actually doing very well across the country, so that up to around midday, we were possibly the fifth most talked about subject in the country. And that attests to the fact that research is an important discussion, and also research can actually be endeared in the mind of several people and several Kenyans. Mr. PS, we appreciate as an authority that we cannot actually coordinate this industry without working hard to actually foster research findings dissemination, and again also putting the kind of recommendations that we're having from our studies into practice and policy. And that is why this activity is very important to all of us, and also important for you, sir. Now, I do not want to waste a lot of time because we're already so much behind schedule, but I would like at this point to invite our CEO, the Executive Director, Engineer Maurice Akech, who will come and make some few remarks before he tells us how to proceed. Karibu sana Bwana Idi. Let's clap for him as he comes to make a presentation.
Our Principal Secretary, State Department of Public Works, the Chairman or the Chairperson of NCA, board members of National Construction Authority present, professional associations in the construction industry represented here, industry stakeholders, contractors, colleagues from NCA. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First, let me start by welcoming all of us for finding time to be with us this second day, which also part of our official opening ceremony for the week of the research dissemination for construction industry research. We do not take it for granted to be here physically present, even though we are also live on other digital platforms, given the circumstance in which we live in this country. Let me also, once again, say that this forum brings us together in a unique way. through innovation, which is one of our core values, we have seen it, deemed it fit that this time round we hold this workshop both physically and digitally. And I want to assure you that we have been joined by the largest number ever seen in this forum, especially on the digital platform, going by what we saw yesterday. And I believe even today will be much better. The objective of this workshop is to share key results, findings and recommendations, and generate a discussion around them as a means of improving quality and safety compliance in the construction industry. So it's worth noting that with the discussions drawn from various sectors, including the academia, who have collaborated with us very closely, including the construction industry professionals, including all sectors of the economy. The findings will augment the contribution that we need to inform decision that will make a real difference as we move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind us that National Construction Authority, which is created by an Act of Parliament, number 41 of 2011, gives us a mandate to conduct research and disseminate the same in the construction industry. In 2015, a number of stakeholders gathered at Kenya School of Monetary Studies, of course hosted by NCA, to identify needs or research gaps that were needed for the industry, and they were prioritized and developed into a document called National Construction Research Agenda. It focused on very many key areas, among them utilization and adoption of emerging technologies in the construction industry, effectiveness of waste management, enhancement of local capacity of contractors, and management of occupational hazards in the construction, among others. 2 years ago, or shy of 2 years ago, the authority undertook a review of the same document, that agenda that so far, we have conducted several research studies under the NACRA 2015. Some of them include research on building failures. I know you're wondering what that means. This was a study that was to determine scientifically why do we have constant cases of buildings and other structures collapsing in the country. There was also a study on involvement of micro and small medium industry. There was also a study on appropriate building materials and technologies. This particular one was the subject of yesterday's discussion. I'm aware a lot of reactions were given, very positive, that will also enrich the findings. And the fourth one is a research study on construction waste in Kenya. The need for sustainable waste management practices. I know all of us know that when we talk about waste in construction, construction is one of the biggest producers of waste. So if it's not properly managed, then it can end up with a lot of mayhem. Of the many critical findings, especially the study on why buildings are failing or why they collapse in the country, one interesting finding came out that the probability of building failing in this country is 35%. In perspective, what does that mean? That for every 100 buildings, 35 of them are likely to fail. In simple terms, I know researchers and scientists and experts can digest it into further details. The other issue that emerged is that the probability of building failure is influenced by various factors. They cut across financial, like for instance, if a developer does not give their support in terms of financing, and you cut corners. It also borders on technical. If you have professionals who have not exercised their professional diligence and the standard duty of care, or you have a contractor who is not done the workmanship as expected, or a funding. The other one is institutional, how institutions work together, either in harmony or disharmony, can also contribute to that. The other one could be legal, how issues of regulations and legal aspects are arranged around the construction industry. Ethical is doing the wrong thing when you know exactly what you're supposed to do for an ulterior motive. And then the other one was adequacy of welfare. How do we compensate the people who are working in the industry? I'm enhancing that because that's normally the big topic when we talk about construction in Kenya. The other issue of why buildings are failing, as per that study, was because of disassociation in institutions, in capacity and laxity, and of course, this creates a fertile ground for other factors to thrive in. Number 3, ladies and gentlemen, we are currently experiencing a lot of infrastructure development in our country, and as you know it, the SME sector contributes 80% to our economy. So the question is, how then can we involve this critical sector in the involvement in construction, even as we see it? So there was need to undertake a study in this area of SMEs so that they can be incorporated. We had an opportunity using the affordable housing model to engage in the pilot project in Ngara, where the government engaged the contractor to ensure that some items are ring-fenced for this Chuakali sector, the SMEs as you know it. And it worked very well, it was successful. What needed to be done is to have them organized in a manner that they're able to deliver. So that particular study for the development of micro SMEs and then also engaging them on a real-time project gave us the impetus to even validate the findings further. Today, arising from that study, what we realized that there was need of standardization so that the products made are packaged in a certain standard, and therefore we developed a manual for construction items that was talking about including about 66 items. From if you strip down a house from the doors to even what component goes to the door, the windows, and everything. So you can imagine 66 items, both consumables and unconsumables. Consumables are things that go into the finished product, the building, and consumables are things like wheelbarrows and sprays, because you use them and leave them for another project. The other issue is on construction waste, as I mentioned earlier, and majority of construction sites lack waste collection facilities, and very few construction sites have updated and well-maintained records of generated waste. So this requires some focus and importance as we move forward. All findings will be well articulated in the presentations. Some happened yesterday, some will happen today, and up to Friday. All those things I've discussed are just a summary. Notwithstanding the impact of construction industry as well as the larger economy, these research findings also contribute to the optimization of our activities as an institution. For example, the research that I've most talked about, the research on building failures, has provided us with critical information on informing the building code, which is currently a document that's being worked on, and very soon we'll be inviting you back as industry stakeholders to engage you so that you can give the input as far as our constitution requires, and of course as the best practice, so that we can be able to have this document developed and adopted for use going forward. As I summarize, or as I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to appreciate the teams that have made this entire journey possible. As you know it, working alone, you can go very fast, but you may not go very far. But working together collaboratively, we are able to do so much. So there are some specific mentions I would want to cite as I give them special thanks. One is our PS, the Principal Secretary, who has supported us immensely in our course of our duty in terms of giving direction, policy, and guidance. The board, led by our chairman, Gaido, in terms of also giving us leadership and oversight in terms of how we conduct these studies. I also want to mention the industry stakeholders. Specifically, I want to talk about the professional associations, the Architectural Association of Kenya, who have really supported us in terms of working together, providing input from time to time, and even nominating participants or members to be with us from time to time. And even in this room today, I know the president of AAK is with us, Architect Mugurujen. We have with us other professional associations, IEK, who have also worked along with us. That is Institution of Engineers of Kenya, in terms of supporting what we do as part of the industry stakeholder. We have Institute of Quantity Surveyors of Kenya, IQSK, who have also supported us in this regard. We have other professionals like construction project managers who have also worked along with us, and the respective sister regulatory agencies, EBK, that's Engineers Board of Kenya, BORAX, the Board of Registration of Architects and Quantity Surveyors, and then contractors associations. So these have really worked with us. And on the technical side, we've also received very good collaborative support from the universities. Specifically, we have worked very closely with the University of Nairobi, especially in some of these studies. As you know it, us, we are supposed to formulate, but work with the universities to come with a technical way of analyzing and concluding the study. We also have University of, that's JKUAT, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. We have Technical University of Kenya. I think today in this room, represented by Professor Sylvester Masu. We have other universities like KU, Kenyatta University, and other institutions of learning. I also want to appreciate geolocal associations, because when we were doing some of these studies, we needed them. If you do a study in the air and you don't land to the stakeholder that you need, then that study will just be a piece of paper. But in order to do a proper study, you need to engage those who will be affected by the findings of those studies. So, in a nutshell, those have been very able institutions that have been able to support us. I cannot forget government institutions that have also worked together with us, especially the training regulator, TVETA. We also have worked very closely with the Kenya Bureau of Standards. We worked very closely with the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and also National Housing Corporation, alongside the State Department of Housing, which is also a sister State Department under the same ministry where we belong, under the State Department of Public Works. Also, our close partners are NBI, whom we work with very closely. That's National Building Inspectorate, which is a department under State Department of Housing. We worked also very closely as far as this is concerned. But remember, every industry, construction industry player has also worked with us. So in case I haven't mentioned, please, you're part of us. That is to say NEMA, that is to say other bodies like women in real estate who have also collaborated with us, and many others, and all of you who are sitting here today who have found time to come. Ladies and gentlemen, the authority remains committed to sharing pertinent industry information with all our stakeholders, and that's why we have called you here today, and also put this on a digital platform to have as big outreach as possible, including members from outside the country are also logging in to be able to be with us as far as Germany and beyond. This forum plays a direct role in the fulfillment of that commitment of sharing with our information with our stakeholders. Your feedback during this session and for the next 3 days will encourage us and enrich this document and make it even better for purposes of enriching the industry. I look forward to a very fruitful engagement, and I thank you all, and God bless you. Bwana Pierce, Chair, board members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my humble duty at this juncture to invite the chairperson of the Board of National Construction Authority, QS David Mwangi Gaibo, to come and share his remarks with the distinguished audience. Karibu Bwana Chair. Round of applause, please.
I want to copy the executive director and remove my mask so that you can hear me better. Our chief guest, the PS for Public Works, you're most welcome. Our board members of NCA, I can see Director Ganesha. Any other board member? Our Professor Bulitia is here. Most welcome. Our Executive Director, you have seen him. Leadership of professional organizations, the academia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I would also like to wish you a very happy new year. We haven't met with most of you, including board members, as most of our meetings have become virtual. So we are here about research dissemination. The ED has given a full detail of why we are here. Mine will just be a recap because there is no need of repeating what he has said. There's so much we can research on, but as NCA or any other government organization, we may not have the funds. So what we are presenting this week is what was identified as our priority areas due to limited resources, and I want to appreciate the resource persons from yesterday all the way to the end of the week, and it was very well received. As the MC said, we were trending in social media. So the role of the board is, after dissemination, we don't stop there. Turn it into policy and prevent or lessen that 35% the ED has mentioned, hopefully to zero. That's the role of the board. So we were trending in social media, so that's not good enough. We have to move on and make it work for us, so that by the time the term of the board ends, we can say we have moved from the research finding of 35% to 10 or to 0. Specifically, that on building failures, it's been ongoing for a long time. I think most of you remember Sunbeam, 1996. Maybe that could have formed the basis of formation of NCA. That's 25 years down the line. So our challenge is now to move on to implementation and make sure we are better than those previous years. The other research papers are equally important, as given in full detail by the executive directors. The incorporation of our geocaching manufacturers into the formal system, like he mentioned in the big housing, which is part of the Big Four agenda, is very positive, and we look forward to it working and then supplying more in future housing projects. With those few words, I want to thank all of you for honoring our invite. This is very good attendance, and I hope you stay on to conclusion. And I also appreciate those who are following us online, and we look forward to realizing all our expectations towards building a stronger and more enriched economy of Kenya. Thank you very much. I would now like to invite our chief guest to give his remarks and officially open the research dissemination program. Thank you.
The chairman of the National Construction Authority, QS Gaido, the heads of various bodies in here today, those from academia, those from the construction industry, the board members of NCA present today, the staff of NCA, I stand before you humbled to address you on this subject, the research which the authority has undertaken concerning the construction industry. You'll agree with me that research is not that very good area that we've done well, because sometimes the funds which are allocated for research or generally training in almost majority of the institutions is always limited. Sometimes it's never considered a priority. Whereas in the real sense, our institutions of higher learning are really supposed to have a backbone in research. Because it is out of research that a lot of many things will happen. Policies will be developed. Other development will come as a result of that. Because something that is properly researched means there was a reason as to why that research was undertaken. There's a statement problem, then it is proper data is collected, analyzed, and then the outcome comes, and it's that outcome that will inform other things. And for us in the construction industry, which, by the way, is the leading. There is the technical component, there are the workers, and there's no way you can finish a day without seeing something being constructed. So it's part and parcel of us, but how well have we handled it? And that's why you can actually be able to see that we have some of the negative aspect that is coming out of it. The failure of the buildings, poor coordination of construction, poor handling of the waste management. In fact, if you were to look at these two areas that had been looked into, we are even lucky that we are not prone to earthquake. There are some structures which are standing today. If they were in a place like Indonesia or Japan, there will be nothing at the end of the day. So we are only lucky. Sometimes you say we are lucky, we are living where we are. The construction industry forms quite a bulk of the development of a country. Our country is like, is one of those developing countries on the continent where construction is really very vibrant. And I want to commend the technical officers in those areas, the construction industry, whether you're talking about structure, whether you're talking about dam building, whether you're talking about houses building, all these things, they are really live. And we need to closely look at how then do we. Good number of researches have been done, and a good number of them are lying with dust overflowing onto them. How then are we going to improve? How are we going to ensure that the research that has been undertaken is going to benefit? How is it going to be disseminated so that it is going to be exposed to almost all those people who are supposed to do it? The building failures in this country is a reality. We have today structures which do not meet the threshold of saying that this structure is formidable and its integrity is quite okay. But this is something that is going to involve almost everybody. NCA has a duty, NCA board has a duty to ensure that they disseminate the right information. And therefore, I'm very proud that the NCA board and management in their own right have found it very prudent to engage the officers and in collaboration with the other bodies, whether those in the world of academia or those in the construction industry. I think this has progressed on very well until we have reached a moment whereby NCA has got something to disseminate, and that's why they are privileged the next 3 days to be able to convey the 3 or 4 researches that they have been able to do. On the side of sustainability of the West, it is a challenge. It is a challenge for sure. If you went to any construction site, sometimes you are not sure whether there are some measures that have been put in place to ensure that we can be able to sustain. And the waste management in this country has actually not gotten a better solution. It's therefore something that will inform that we need to have some level of vibrancy to ensure that there is proper communication, and this is something that will definitely be able. Another area that, of course, the research need to look at it is the usage of the new technology. For example, when we talk about the expanded polyester EPS, sometimes it has not really been understood. We don't have quite many plants which are manufacturing those. But one thing I want to say is that even if you have got this new technology, if certain parameters are not addressed, for example, if you are doing a construction using the EPS and a contractor does not have the adequate money to ensure that that is done within a time frame, if it stays for a long time, it will just go back to. So it will actually not be less expensive. Today also, with the EPS, there are some contractors today who can actually not use those new technologies. So that the technology is good, but then the people who are supposed to use that technology to come up with a facility that will definitely mirror are not there. So this is also a responsibility of NCA to ensure that that is done. Research is important. And research is derived from knowledge. People must research. And that's why we rely also greatly from those in the world of academia. We are very lucky to have a number of institutions of higher learning. If that collaboration is there, then whatever is going to come out of the research will definitely be able to benefit all of us. It is therefore very important that as we listen to the 4 researches that have been done, the one on the building failures, waste management, where we are going to use the SMEs, the medium enterprises, and of course, finally, whereby those who are involved in the field, how do they collaborate? If that is understood, many other researchers, money may not be adequate, but for having taken a step forward that you have been able to deal with the 4 components, I think you should be able to plan that this is something that needs to be gradual, so that at the end of the day, relevant and adequate research around construction industry are done. I therefore want to wish you well as you deliberate, but I want to acknowledge the board of NCA headed by the chairman, Piers Guido with the members, with his members, and of course the executive director who is heading the management. I will therefore ask that you deliberate with a lot of freedom, so at the end of the day you will be able to appreciate that it's good to have a document that is well researched, and we cannot ignore the growing construction industry. With those few remarks, I want to wish you a good deliberation, and with that, I officially open the forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bona PF, our chairman and also the executive director, for those very good remarks. I don't know whether Paul Karaoke is around. Paul, have I seen Paul Karaoke? Yeah, just make your way here, Paul. The reason I'm calling Paul, we have also done an in-house research. And we have realized Paul is our best person when it comes to appreciating those who do well. So he also happens to be our manager for human resource, and possibly that is why he likes appreciating people. So I would like to ask Paul to guide us on how to appreciate our peers. Karibu, Paul.
Thank you, GM. I want to request that we all stand. Let's be upstanding so that we can appreciate the permanent secretary, the chairman, and the executive director of the National Construction Authority for their remarks. And because we have a lot of people in academia, and we were taken through what we used to call the factorial, we are going to take that direction of the factorial. At NCA we have many ways of doing it, but because of this special forum for disseminating research findings, we are going to do the factorial way. So we are going to clap as follows, because we are going to do 7 factorial, and it will be in a descending order. In other words, we are going to do 7, we are going to do 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's go. Let's because I'm leading, I want to show you how we are going to do it. So let's go. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. At least one added. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was very kind, and we appreciate you helping us to appreciate Major General Retired, our PS, and also the other team members who are giving us those very beautiful remarks. Now, with your permission, Mr. PS, I would like to request, I know Executive Director, if it's agreeable, I would like to request you to guide the PS. We sit over there for a moment. There are some seats already reserved for the PS. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. The reason for that is that we'd like to request you, Mr. Pierce, to sit back for a few moments so that we can present the study of today. Today we are focusing on Jua Kali, what we are calling the small and medium enterprises and their involvement when it comes to delivering the big four agenda of the government. NCA has been in the forefront when it comes to this thematic research area. There's a lot of work we have done supported by the PS and also working very closely with the State Department of Housing and Urban Development. And NCA has been coordinating the other government agencies that are responsible in ensuring that the Jua Kali players are actually involved in the delivery of the affordable housing. Our main task here is to help in standardization of the various components that goes into construction. For example, the issues of doors, fixtures, basically, or fittings. And we've been able to work closely with one Jua Kali association, Gomaka. And they have benefited from one of the projects that the government has delivered under the Big Four agenda. And at this point, I would like to invite a panel that will be helping us to discuss this area and what our findings are and where the government policy should actually be directed and what should be the areas of practice in terms of implications for practice. I would like to invite Daktari Jason Muchache, kindly. Asante sana, Daktari. Daktari will be our moderator for a short session. So Daktari, you can have your seat here. Then the other players in this thematic area will be Dr. Christopher Mbada. You can just raise up your hand. Asante sana, Daktari. That's my professor, my former teacher. We have Mr. Tom Magara, who is greatly involved from the Executive Office of the President in terms of researching in this thematic area, working very closely with NCA. Tom, you can raise up your hand for the PS to see you. Thank you very much. We have Architect Charles Kamau. I don't know Charles. Yeah, Charles has been involved in the Gara project greatly. So he'll be one of the discussants. He'll be telling us how we are involving the MSMEs, especially the Jua Kalis. And lastly, we have Daktari, sorry, not lastly, we have Daktari Kamau Gashege. Daktari Kamau Gashege. He's actually the entrepreneur behind the Gearbox. We all know Gearbox in Kenya. They are actually working towards incubating and accelerating MSMEs in this area of Jua Kali. And lastly, we have Daktari Dominic Omboto. Daktari Omboto, he'll also be another discussant. So, Mr. PS, those will be our discussant for this thematic area on Jua Kali involvement in the delivery of the Big Four agenda and specifically the housing. But I would like to first invite our assistant manager, Chris Hahoya, to come and make a short presentation, after which then I'll invite Daktari to coordinate the next session where we'll have the panel discussion. Karibu sana, Chris.
Okay, this moment, just to take this opportunity, our chief guest, the PS for the State Department for Public Works, the chair of the board of NCA, the board members, the management of NCA, the staff of NCA, the key stakeholders in the construction industry. I'd just like now to welcome you through the presentation. I'll be going through the highlights of the research on the involvement of micro, small and medium enterprises in the construction industry in Kenya. It is voluminous, so I'll be able just to pick the highlights to take you through, at least to appreciate what has been done. So the topic is the involvement of the micro, small and medium enterprises in the construction industry in Kenya, popularly known as the Juakali. Okay, the content, the outline will take you through the introduction, then the factors affecting productivity and international best practice in regard to MSME. Thirdly, the current policy, legal, and institutional framework for MSME in Kenya. Take you through the fourth is the research methodology, the findings and analysis, and the recommendations. So the introduction part of it is that this basis of this is a economic blueprint for the country, the Kenya Vision 2030. It identifies this sector as a key sector that needs to be supported so that they can contribute effectively to the growth and development of the country to a developed economy. So the MSMC are very critical in the achievement of the Kenya Vision 2030. So it's a priority for the government of Kenya. And also on the realization that when you enhance the contribution to the GDP, it will be very important for the country because the nature of the MSME that is they create a lot of employment opportunities that. And then recently in 2017, the current government came up with the Big Four agenda. The priority areas is, amongst the priority areas is housing and manufacturing. And they identified the MSMEs as very key players in this sector to contribute towards that. So the background of the study is that it is very easy to establish the MSME all over the country that because of what the requirements of it. So it's very easy and they can be involved in very diverse fields. And also what informed this is also the success in developed economies. I'll pick the case of Europe, especially German, is a best example of where the MSME have been effectively involved and they contribute a lot to the GDP of that country. And also now, the importance of the MSME in Kenya is that over the years, they've been recognized for their role in the provision of goods and services, and enhancing competition, fostering innovation, and generating employment and alleviating poverty across the country, both urban and rural. Okay, the problem statement, the highlight of it is that in Kenya, the MSMEs account for the 80% of all enterprises in Kenya, and they offer employment to a majority of the unskilled, semi-skilled, and skilled individuals. The contribution to the GDP, as in the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics survey in 2016 was 33%, this contribution. Whereas when you look at that, it's employing about 80%. The figure is 15 million people are involved in this sector. So that is very key area. That's why the government prioritized that. So in the construction industry in Kenya, MSMEs are involved in supplying construction materials and other components. They have also been identified as key drivers in the implementation of the Big Four agenda, affordable housing and manufacturing, which was rolled out by the government in 2017. Despite all this, they are virtually maintenance and success of their enterprises. So the potential for the economic and social benefits of MSMEs is that the creation of jobs, they're contributing positively to the GDP, improving forward and backward linkages between sectors, both vertical and horizontal, creating opportunities for employing appropriate technologies, providing an opportunity to expand the entrepreneurial base, expanding our pool of skilled and semi-skilled workers, providing support to large-scale enterprises, providing the required flexibility to adapt to market failures, and also enter into market niches which are not profitable for the larger enterprises, and also contributing to the development policies that are more oriented towards decentralization and rural development. This is very now key for us because of the devolved government, the devolved system of governance in the country. That's very critical areas. That's why the government prioritizes this, that it will be very important at least to support this sector. Despite that, they have a lot of challenges because of lack of resources in terms of finance, in terms of access to technology, the skills, the access to the markets, both local and international, and also the issue of access to the market information. Also, there is a problem where there is lack of economies of scale and scope. They have higher transaction costs relative to the larger enterprises. There's also the lack networks that can contribute to a lack of information, know-how, and experience of domestic and international markets. Increased market competition and concentration from large multinational enterprises caused by globalization and economic integration. So also there's an inability to compete against large firms in terms of research and development expenditures, which is very key, that will be able to foster innovation in the production process and the organization. There's also that aspect of lack of entrepreneurial zeal, capacity, and know-how, since quite a number are probably family-based, and that affects that issue of entrepreneurial zeal. So the objective of the research is to assign the level of enrollment of MSMEs in the construction industry in Kenya. The specific objectives, number one, is to carry out a situational analysis of MSMEs in the construction industry. Number two is to establish the factors that influence production of MSMEs products. Number three is to explore ways of enhancing MSME production environment. Number four is to find out the adequacy and appropriateness of the legal and institutional framework for the MSME in the country. Lastly is to come up with a model for enhancement of MSME involvement in the construction industry in Kenya. In the aspect of the literature review, I'll just be able to highlight the key areas we looked at. We looked at the areas on factors that affect productivity of enterprises, and also looked at the international best practices in regard to MSMEs. The key factors affecting the productivity, we have the internal factors, in terms of the management of the enterprise, in terms of the education levels of the enterprise owners and the key employees, the aspect of the labor quality, the aspect of technology, equipment, and tools which are used in the production process. Over time, there's that need of learning over the job, learning by doing. There's that aspect of the product innovation, and also the cultural aspect, the work habits and all that, that will inform the success. On the other hand, we have the external factors, which are horizontal linkages. This involves the issue of how do they relate to the other enterprises, how are they organized, are they formal, are they in clusters, are they in circles, so that at least they can be able to work together and benefit from those interactions, that's clustering. Because if you just isolate yourself, probably you may not have a lot of information you may not access, and the production will be low. The issue of the vertical linkages, how do they relate with the suppliers of the raw materials, and how do they relate with the market where they're going to sell these products. Another aspect is the issue of the institution linkages, both government institutions which support these MSMEs, and also some trade associations like the chambers of commerce, like we see in German. They are very key in that, and there's forms of clustering that, because that's very critical. And the aspect of the issue of the productivity spillovers, that where probably they can be able to benefit from these large enterprises and how they relate on that. The aspect of competition is very key here, because it's not only now local, but also international competition. So it's a very critical factor that affects the MSMEs. Like, is the environment very conducive for them even to participate in the big government projects? The aspect of the regulation or proper regulations, there's aspects of probably self-regulation, So it's very critical on how they are regulated, the laws which are there, the policies, and the institutions which support that, and the issue of the flexibility in the input markets. So also talking about the issue of the best practices, we looked at the countries, the Philippines, Egypt, India, Germany, Vietnam, and South Africa. It's very commendable, especially these countries have very serious initiative towards creating a very conducive environment for the MSMEs in their country. And there are common challenges. I may not go through them. They mirror the challenges which I mentioned earlier. So they are faced a lot of challenges, but they have a way of, the best way of trying to deal with them. The best example, the best is Germany. On how they have created a very conducive environment for the MSME to operate. Another case is India. The MSME are contributing immensely, given if you look at also India, the population, they prioritize this MSME to be supported through very many institutions to support them, to access finance, to access markets, all that. So I may not go through it's a conceptual framework on this study about the factors which you probably now, once addressed, will be able to enhance the productivity of the MSME, and by that, enhance the contribution to the economy of this country. So I just highlight the current policy, legal, and institutional framework for MSMEs. On the one part, we are going to look at the legal, the law. We have the Micro and Small Enterprise Act, which establishes the Micro and Small Enterprise Authority, under which we are also going to have they'll be able to set up the Office of the Registrar, who will register MSME. They also have a fund there which will be able to support the MSME, and also register them and issue them with certificates of registration. We have the Cooperative Society Act. Cooperatives are very critical because when we went out to the field, some of them are organized in form of cooperatives. We have also the aspect of business registration, which will also be very key under the legal. On the aspect of the institutional, we have the NCA authority, we have KIE, we have National Industrial Training Authority, Kenya National Trading Corporation, Kenya Bureau of Standards, Kenya Investment Authority, and financial institutions. And these are just a few of them. There are many of them which, in one way or another, support the MSME, or they are supposed to support the MSME in the country. So the research methodology, the design was a mixed method with a combination of qualitative and quantitative data, which was collected and analyzed. The data collection instruments were interviews and questionnaires, where the research teams were able to go out to the entire country to collect this data. So just the findings, and I'll be able just to highlight the findings. Under the gender, the demographics, the gender is male-dominated. Education and training mostly are secondary and primary. Experience, 4 years and above. On the status of the employment, most of them, 73, are self-employed, and mostly are sole proprietorships. Most of them rent their stores where they operate. Storage of goods, they have issues. They have their own storage, but may not be adequate if they get bulk orders. The machinery is, you can call it elementary, most of them, from the field observations. The issue of power is there, but the issue of the reliability of the power. The transportation, they have various modes which they use. In marketing, they have some forms which they use, but they have not harnessed the aspect of technology in a big way to use from the marketing. On the issue of finance, it's a major issue, source of funding. They mostly use their own personal savings, and 70% and also 23% to sustain the business. So the issue of the finance is a very critical issue. I may not go through the details. The current financial environment, or now because of the issue, mainly because of collateral, they don't have that. So there should be innovative ways to support them to access funding to support their capital and operational expenses. On the issue of materials, majority of the respondents use either metal or wood. Types of skill required is fabrication, fitting, and then we have also the factors which will affect the design of the products, because specification from the clients, availability of raw materials, availability of machinery and equipment. Most of them are aware of CAPES, but they are not satisfying the product. And factors which affect the quality of the product are, because it depends mostly on the personnel. On the legal factors, we are able to explore that. On the registration of government institutions, majority of them, 53 are registered by particular government institutions, so leaves are around 47 who are not registered. And they pay some kind of business permit fees. Right? In the conclusion and recommendation, I'll just be able to highlight this. It rolls around the area of need to formalize the MSME so that at least the government can be able to support them. The various financial solutions to MSME, especially the credit guarantee scheme, will be very critical, and the special funds so that at least, and if the commercial banks also have structured special MSME financing will be good, enabling them to access machinery. The aspect of training, upskilling, and awareness is very critical. The aspect of checking on the quality, looking at the workplaces for them to access the workplaces which are appropriate. And then the aspect of research and development is very critical. The aspect of technology and skills transfer to learn from the large enterprises. And to be also facilitated in the issue of sourcing of raw materials and the marketing of finished product. The issue of like timber in the country is a challenge for them to get. And also the aspect at the personal level, the welfare consideration. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chris Kahoya, our presenter, for that very important topic. P.S., ladies and gentlemen, what Chris may not have told us is that the summary presentation here is actually captured in a voluminous booklet. It's a lot of information that has been provided on this subject, and we find it very important because this is actually an agenda that has been delegated to NCA for us to make sure that we synthesize the issues around the involvement of MSMEs to ensure they are actively involved in the construction industry. And for example, it's also worth noting that about 50,000 contractors registered by NCA, around 50,000, 80% of them will actually be small, medium enterprises. And these are the people who are collaborating with these Juakalis. They'll be at NCA 8, NCA 7, 6, and on the higher side, maybe NCA 5. And these are the people we are trying to support, and we are very happy when we see our policymakers are present here, represented by our peers, so that we can try and synthesize some of the solutions that are required in this area. And as Chris has mentioned, we cannot deny, it's an undeniable fact, that in majority developing economies, the role of SMEs is critical in provision of employment, government services, and whatever other needs that are important for advancement of a country like Kenya. Now at this point, I would like to invite our Executive Director, Engineer Maurice Akech, to come and sum up the morning and then tell us how to proceed. Karibu sana, Edie.
Thank you, our Master of Ceremony, QS David Matu, and thank you, our Chief Guest, the PS, Public Works. Thank you, our Chairman or Chairperson of the Board. Thank you, Board members, management and staff of NCA. Thank you, all invited guests, our stakeholders, professional colleagues, leaders in the professional association, contractors, and everyone, even those who are following us online. At this juncture, we've taken ourselves through the opening ceremony, the remarks, and where the rubber meets the road for today's discussion. which is a study on involvement of medium, small enterprise in the construction industry. And I know we are now expecting to hear the softer parts led by our facilitator and conducted by our discussants. Before we get there, it will be good to boost up our energies so that at least when we come back, we are more energized, ready to listen, contribute, because this discussion will require that you listen, ask questions as they make the contributions so that we sum it up from there. I can assure you that discussion will be what will be filling up any other questions in our minds so that back home, or in the office as we call it, we'll be now putting it into perspective, which will again release to the industry for consumption and for better use in various aspects. So in that regard, I want to request all of us to take, to go for a short break of 15 minutes, a quarter of an hour. That's actually quite some time. I know this break is for those who are here physically and those who are also following us online, and we'll have the break out there, and 15 minutes later, let's come back. That will be 10:40, 10:50, sorry, so that we start the discussion. So those who are already invited as discussant and facilitator, please at 10 minutes to 11, let's gather back, plus all the stakeholders. Online followers, please join us exactly 15 minutes from now so that we can continue. Thank you very much, and have a great morning.
umekamilika kurejista na NCA, National Construction Authority. Inamaanisha nini?
Inamaanisha umetambulika kama fundi wa mijengo hodari kulingana na ujuzi wako.
Inamaanisha umesimamiwa kiafya, kikazi, kimalipo na kisheria kote Kenya.
Inamaanisha pia umeaminika. Wewe sio fundi bandia, na kwa hivyo utaitiwa kazi mingi.
Be sure, Jenga Smart, to ensure the safe construction of all residential, commercial structures, roads and other works. The National Construction Authority is directing all contractors to be registered with and workers accredited by the authority to ensure compliance with the construction regulations of Kenya. Reach our customer care team on 0709 126 173, 0709 126 102 and 0709 126 172. National Construction Authority. A strong Kenya.
National Construction Authority inamaanisha nini?
Inamaanisha umetambulika kama fundi wa mijengo hodari kulingana na ujuzi wako.
Inamaanisha umesimamiwa kiafya, kikazi, kimalipo na kisheria kote Kenya.
Inamaanisha pia umeaminika. Wewe sio fundi bandia, na kwa hivyo
Sure, Jenga Smart, to ensure the safe construction of all residential, roads and other works. The National registered with and workers accredited by the authority to ensure compliance with the construction regulations of Kenya. Reach our customer care team on 0709 126 173, 0709 126 102 and 0709 126 172. National Construction Authority, building a strong Kenya. What do you need to be registered as a contractor with the National Construction Authority? Log on to site, click on register to be a contractor, then click on commercial structures, roads, and other works. The National Construction Authority is directing all contractors to be registered with and workers accredited by the authority to ensure compliance with the construction regulations of Kenya. Reach our customer care team on 0709 126 173, 0709 126 102, and 0709 126 172. National Construction Authority, building a strong Kenya.
One, two. Check, check. 1, 2. Sound check 1, 2. Sound check 1, 2.
Anaje, abu eka paka kwa earphones bila tusikize niambie.
Earphone.
Check, check. 1, 2. Na hapo. Nizo. Check 1, 2. Sound check 1, 2. Yeah. Sound check 1, 2. Mic check 1, 2. Check, check 1, 2. Sound check 1, 2. Sound check 1, 2. Testing sound check 1, 2. Sound check 1, 2.
126 173, 0709 126 102, and 0709 126 172. National Construction Authority. Building a strong Kenya.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Watu wangu wa mjei, unajua kurejista na NCA, National Construction Authority, inamaanisha nini?
Inamaanisha umetambulika kama fundi wa mijengo hodari kulingana na ujuzi wako.
ladies and gentlemen,
1, 2.
is the mic on? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to invite you back. Mic is not working. Ladies and gentlemen, the break time is up. I want to invite you into the conference room. Time check, time check. Time check. Can I invite each one of you into the conference room so that we can continue? Yes. Need a few to my left.
Good afternoon, team. Kindly, let's assemble back. Let's assemble back so that we can start the session. The ushers kindly assist the delegates to come in so that we can start.
At the right time, we shall start our discussion. And for that reason, I'm going to request if we could close the front door right in front so that we use the left door as the left doors. We want to be sure that those who are making the online communication are set. By lifting your hand, we will know you are set. Okay? And those who are listening, I want to know that you are set by keeping silent. Thank you. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are privileged once again to continue with our session of this very important workshop. We have this morning a team of gentlemen who have accepted to come and share their experiences and at the same time to review the research paper that has been presented to us this morning. and also to give a way forward in some of the areas which we shall be mentioning in a form of questions, but much more so, questions that are not asked but which will be answered by them. I will start by introducing myself. My name is Jason Muchache. I'm a professor at the Technical University of Kenya. I'm an architect by profession and a planner. I have worked in the micro enterprise sector for a long time, including master's research, PhD research, and also through the international organizations where I worked for almost 16 years. I was supporting micro enterprises. Right now, I concentrate in making the students at the Technical University conscious of entrepreneurship and penetrating the micro enterprise sector, because that is where there is a clear line on where there is employment. So I'm privileged to chair this discussion this morning. And in front of us, I'm going to allow our gentlemen, the only lady who was supposed to be, my apology, the only lady who was supposed to be on this platform had other engagements, so I'm told that today you would accept this gender imbalance in this discussion. But those who are in the plenary, we can allow contributions only from the ladies this morning. Thank you. So I'll start right from my extreme left. Dr. Chris Mbatha. Chris, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself in exactly half a minute. Within that introduction, you say you are interested in this conference.
My name is Christopher Mbatha. I'm a trained conservator, but specialized in construction project management. Currently, I am teaching at the University of Nairobi. For a long time, we have not had a chance to train contractors formally until we introduced the course of construction management in the universities. One of the objectives of training in construction management is to work for a client, to coordinate the project team, but more so, we are training the young people to become contractors if they wish. And since they start with the NCA 8, NCA 7, NCA 6, those are normally, would they be classified as small or micro enterprises? And that is my interest here, to promote the future contractors who will start small and who I train at the university.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. On my extreme right, we have Dr. Dominic Mboto. Dominic?
Thank you very much.
Your microphone, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the chance, moderator. As our moderator said, I'm Mboto Dominic. I'm an assistant director research at TVET Authority. And as we know, TVET, we are concerned with setting standards of training. In TVET, we accredit initiations and trainers, and also we check for compliance. My interest, as we saw from our findings, training is very key when it comes to quality output. We are actually in very interesting times where we are implementing very interesting standards in TVET, and one of the standards we are implementing is PLA. And PLA means prior learning, assessment, and recognition.
Now, this one means that for all those tradesmen in construction who never went through formal training, we can now formalize them by actually exposing them to this kind of standard where they prove the skills they possess, and therefore we give them certifications. So majorly, my interest is actually training. I'm at undergraduate level, I'm a constructor, but at those higher levels, I'm a management expert, actually management and governance expert. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dominic. I would go again to my left, extreme left. We have a gearbox. Gearbox, introduce your name.
Thank you very much, moderator, Daktari. My name is Kamau Gashege. I run, as you heard, an incubator called Gearbox. It's a fairly unique incubator because what we do is we provide access to people who have an idea for what they want to make, a product, some hardware we call it generally, but don't confuse it with only hardware as relates to computing. It could be that you have a better chair that you've designed in your mind and you want to come and make a prototype. You don't have the machines to do it yourself, so you can come into our space and use it. We also incubate businesses there. My background, I taught at the University of Nairobi within the mechanical engineering department for many years. And the reason that I'm here is because we also, within the context of Gearbox, we train a lot of people within Juakali sector. And we've even set up our own Juakali Association to help the members to access contracts from government. I'll be speaking about that a bit later. I also have a different hat, which is I chair the board of the National Industrial Training Authority, NITA, and we also, within that context, have a lot of connection with Juakali sector, broadly speaking, including something very similar to what the gentleman from Tibet mentioned. We have a program that's about recognition of prior learning, and we award those who have learned through many years of experience on the ground by testing them and giving them some sort of qualification. I'll be speaking more about that later. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I want to go to my right to Tom Njeru.
Thank you, Dr. Jason, and thank you all for this opportunity. My names are Tom Magara. I work for a consulting firm called Genesis Analytics, where my focus, my area of focus is SME development and access to finance. So my role on this panel, being the only one who's not directly related to construction, is that the firm that I work for was commissioned to evaluate a pilot project of the government to incorporate Juakali artisans into one of the affordable housing projects. So that's my role here, and I'll be speaking to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Coming to my left now is Mr. Kamau from Ministry of Public Works. Please.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Charles Kamau from the State Department of Public Works. I've been working there for quite some time now. My training is in building construction, and therefore I was given the privilege to supervise as the Clerk of Works the affordable housing project in Gara, where I came into contact with Juakali artisans from a cluster of very many groups from Gong, Kamkunji and Kariobangi combined together to form Kokamka. And with your permission, Mr. Chair, they are here. Can they?
Yes, Ngokamka. I also know you, Ngokamka. We're working with them on another project. Okay. All right, thank you.
And my interest in this forum is to share with you my experiences with these people in that project.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That is the panel you have. And then, of course, you have the panel which is from your side.
which is made of a lot of experiences. Now, our concern this morning, before we come to the question, is to re-examine the micro and medium enterprises that are addressing the building industry in Kenya. But we have been exposed to those that are operating from other countries. We learned of a case from Egypt. We learned of a case from Germany. There's a case from the Philippines. There's a case from South Africa. There's a case from Kenya. Now, what is the concern of a research undertaken by an authority which is in the construction, let me say construction management in Kenya, in going out there? Some of you are privileged to have traveled to other countries. That I have been privileged, and you have seen micro enterprises that are performing. If you check the souvenirs you have in your home, the artifacts you have, whether you went to Italy, in Rome, for those who go to Rome, those who go to Malaysia, those who have been to Nigeria, those who have been to the Gambia, those who have been to Senegal, those who have been to the pyramids, the items that are sold for the tourism industry come from the micro-enterprise sectors. We often assume, because these things are so beautiful, that they have come from an easy market. They have come with a market full of challenges, just like our building industry micro-enterprises here. Ngokamuka will tell you that the challenge they have is to have their items which they are welding to be square, and especially when an architect is looking for that square and they can't find it. And the words you don't want to hear is that this material has been what? Condemned. In other words, it has been removed. For an enterprise that has spent all that they have to fabricate that material and it is condemned, it means that the enterprise might go out of business. We have seen the budget, how the micro-enterprises contribute to the GDP in Kenya. We have seen how these enterprises contribute to the employment sector. And we have seen the role they play, especially in the housing sector. Many of the homes we live in are built by Juakali artisans. The materials may have been produced, the windows, the doors, etc. So we are re-examining whether this industry can be improved to such a way that it functions without enterprises dying 2 years after formation. I want to allow this gentleman in front here to share on a number of questions. Some are policy related, some are experience related, some are practice related, some are related to training, so that we can move through this discussion in the next, say, 35, 40 minutes and come up with some kind of direction. And I'm going to start with Tom. Tom Magara is going to start by addressing the issue. SMEs are considered key to the GDP contribution in Kenya. And other countries, of course, as you have heard from the various studies which have been presented. What are the challenges that are encountered by SMEs in the construction industry that hamper their growth, and consequently contribute to the country's, even though that growth will contribute to the country's economy, but it is hampered. So you have 2 minutes to address this using your experience, of course, and using Kenya's experience or any other contribution from the research that has been undertaken by NCA.
Thank you, Dr. Moderator. I think the challenges that are faced by MSMEs, even in construction, are well known to us, having operated and lived within Kenya. The first is often around the technical capacity, and this has 2 levels. There is the entrepreneurship, that's being able to get all the required documentation, tax clarifications, and all that, as well as the technical knowledge of whatever is required in that construction. Now, that is both technical in terms of learning in an institution, but also requires very practical learnings. I think the team from Gokamka have learned a lot about working with contractors from outside the country, because their cultures are just very different, and even what's required from them is very different. So that practical aspect of training, which I think Dr. Kamau also involves with in Gearbox, is something that is lacking in our Juakali artisans here. Number 2 is your limited access to machinery and areas to work. The machinery affects the quality of work that you're able to deliver, and if you have very clear specifications of the doors you're supposed to develop, if you're not using the right bandsaw, you're not using the right lathe, you can produce goods that are not up to the standard. Next is access to materials. Being able to access large-scale materials that meet the standards that are required is again an issue. Being Juakali artisans, you're more, for example, used to just sourcing goods around you or materials around you, whereas you might require goods that are higher quality and are not being made locally. The 4th one is access to markets. If you're a Juakali artisan on the side of the road building your wares, it's very difficult for you to be able to meet up to larger opportunities, be it government or be it other formal private sector jobs, in which case then you're never going to be able to scale as much as you would. So having an ability to give them access to these markets is very important. Lastly is around access to finance. Now, we say access to finance a lot, and at times we don't take the time to understand what that means. So that, for starters, means that when you need that financing, that's when an SME is ready to absorb that financing. That's when the financing is needed. But then 2, the form of the financing has to be suited to what you require. Are you starting up? Is it working capital? The amount of money, currency, duration of that, and also in terms of the repayment structure. So these are all key challenges faced in SMEs within the construction industry here, but I'll open it up to my fellow panelists to add anything I might have left out. Thank you.
So, Chris, do you have anything to add on this area?
Thank you, Moderator. In Kenya, we talk about Juakali. The English interpretation of Juakali is informal sector. And I think that informality affects the participants in that, since they are defined as informal, even the operations are also informal. They make them informal. And one of the areas affected is the knowledge, the skills, the training. After all, we are informal. We're not part of the formal economy. So there's nothing wrong in doing things in any way. And that's why NCA has been involved for a long time in trying to access the 85% of our masons, carpenters, plumbers who have not been formally trained, so that they can be tested and be certified as competent. And that would be the base of the competence-based training. Chair, my conclusion is that that challenge of informality, that mentality, that mindset contributes a lot to the behavior of the participants in this sector.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. I just want to follow this concern that the fact that I'm informal, I'll be informal in my thinking and informal in my way of doing things. In other words, I can use a hoe, the back of a hoe, as a hammer instead of looking for a hammer. And what happens to a nail when you are not hammering it in the center? It will bend. What happens to if you are making a door for a precision building like what Mr. Kamau has been addressing, 18 floors, is it? 14 floors building, and you have doors that have been hammered instead of being fixed by screws. You have a challenge. So informality, I think at the end of it all, this plenary should give us some kind of indication. How do we get out of informality in order for these enterprises to operate more effectively? I think that seems to be one of the questions. Now, we saw enterprises from India, enterprises from Egypt. We saw enterprises from Germany that are performing. They are small, but they are fairly formalized in their operations. And they have the machines. They have the machines, but they may have other challenges, like we have seen finances right across the board. Whether you are talking about Germany, you are talking about Vietnam, you are talking about Philippines, finances across the board. Each one of these enterprises have a challenge. Now, I want Charles Kamau to address the issue of when you have a big project which has been institutionally established or commissioned, like this formal housing in Ngara, with a formal contractor. In other words, it's an institution which is formalized. What are the challenges of a small and micro enterprise entering that company so that it can become a partner in doing business? What did you see in Ngara? What are the challenges that the Ministry of Urban Development and Housing, together with the Ministry of Public Works, have been able to penetrate in order to get Juakali enterprises to work with the formal contractors? Please discuss some of those challenges, and we see whether there is a way forward.
Thank you, Chair. As I worked with these people in the Gara project, we came across many challenges. One of them was, like my colleague is here right to put it, access to equipment. They lack equipment with which to work to the precision of the big company. Remember, these big companies have all the equipment that you may mention, but then our people here lack those advanced technological equipment that will enable them now to be able to keep up with the pace of this big contractor. They also have limited resources, financing. Yes. Sometimes it was a very big challenge where they are because they're given timelines by the main contractor. We want to complete this phase within 2 weeks. And for you to achieve this, you need to have supplied this number of doors. Our contract there at Gara with the Juakari people was to do all the doors in that project. And we give it the timelines now. We told we want you to supply this number of doors by the end of next week and to start fixing them within this time. Then with the little resources that are available, we are not able to keep up with that. So I found it a very big challenge because the main contractor would always at times call us even at night, because then they work even at night, and tell us these people are not going to enable us complete this project within the stipulated time. So we found that a main challenge, the resources also. Okay. Then we don't have the skilled personnel. And the main challenge to this is the availability of jobs in the market. They're not able to keep qualified personnel within their establishments because they are not assured of continuous jobs in the market. So they only are able to attract the qualified personnel when they're given some job. And sometimes, due to the pressure of time, they get somebody, they say, I'm a carpenter, I'm a welder. They don't even have the time to test them. And these people come and then they are not able to produce quality work because they lack that experience. So they lack that qualified personnel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamau. How many of you have kept a Juakali fundi continuously until you finish your project? You think about it. There's one who works for me, and it comes to Friday, once he has earned his money, on Monday he's sick. He's sick because he's got a job which has got a 2-week span, and he also had only 3 days more left. So he can't keep with you, and that is correct. So the trend of having, what I wanted to know from Kamau, wouldn't these companies, these large companies, be able to advance some money to these Juakalis who are making either doors or windows for them, in order for them to produce the number they want without running out of money? Are they forced to be working together?
Well, that one, Mr. Chair, they would. But now there comes in the issue of the economics of scale. Remember, this is a big multinational, and when they are making the quotations, they have the resources, the finances, the equipment with them. But these are very small, medium enterprises who lack these resources. So the prices these people have already quoted may not be in line with what these people are going to quote. So the money that were being advanced at times would be insufficient to meet the demand.
Okay. So there's also the problem of not pricing correctly from the micro enterprises. They can't quote correctly. Now, let's look at, I'm going now to Mboto. You have, Mboto, you talked about training so that you can set some standards. We have a concern here that the fundis are not trained enough. They don't understand how to cost correctly, and therefore they underquote or they overquote, and then they are thrown out of the contract. What are you doing at training level to ensure that these people who are either in the micro enterprises already or who are going to be are of a caliber they can deliver?
Thank you, Moderator, for the chance. Now, we know that currently most of our tradesmen, and actually 85%, have not gone through formal training. And therefore, it means that most of our tradesmen in industry do not have a theory of what they do. And actually, no, a better worker is one who has a proper mix of theory and practice. And that's why we have come up with a standard known as PRA, as I said earlier, where we shall actually subject these tradesmen to a kind of assessment where we verify whether this tradesman has an appropriate mix of theory and practice. So that now, if we are satisfied that this person has enough theory and practice of what he does, then we are able to satisfy the tradesman. And if we find that this particular tradesman has practice but no theory of what he does, then we should actually advise for more or advanced theoretical training. I know, like now, one time I had a certain mason whom I met some time back, who used to tell me that I will build an economical building for you. At a very small amount, even with 500, 600, you will have your building. But then what I used to do, you see, once he has done the house, after 3 or 4 months, you could see right at the skirting down there, some holes coming up, where some insects are actually pissing and bringing soil into the floor. What does that one tell you? It tells you that cheap is actually expensive. So therefore, we need to take our tradesmen through formal training so that they are able to appreciate building principles. So ideally, therefore, we have launched already the standard, and very soon we are starting, we have developed policies for the same, and very soon we are starting the assessment. But above all, we are encouraging whoever who has interest in joining the building industry to go through formal training before advancing in that in the particular trade he is actually interested in. Thank you.
But how do we deal with those who have training but they don't have experience? Because I thought if you have no experience, you can't make a square square. Okay, you will answer that one later. Are there enough qualification frameworks that have been developed by Activator for the building industry, for example? Do we have enough qualification frameworks for testing, taking through short trainings? You know, these people, in Ngokamuka don't have people who are going to be at work and others are training. So you want very fast training. So do we have this kind of frameworks which can lift many so that they have a qualification but which is associated with experience?
Thank you. Now, some of us, I think we know that Kenya, for many years, we have been implementing a curriculum known as knowledge-based training. And this is a curriculum where somebody goes to a training institute, is taken through a lot of theory and the rest practicals, so that after finishing, then the industry has a lot of work to return this particular person. We are now moving away from that, and that's why we are actually currently implementing competence-based training. And in this particular training, we are developing competency-based curricula right from level 3. And when we are talking about level 3, is a short course of a period of 3 months, and is actually an equivalent of trade test. We also have other advanced trainings. We call it level 4, level 5, level 6, which is actually diploma. So basically, therefore, I can say that we have developed short curricula where where tradesmen who lack skills will normally come, take those courses of 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and at the end of it, they qualify and get certified.
Thank you very much. I think what now lacks is dissemination of that information so that those who are out there can know the centers where these trainings can be offered. I think that is something which could be included at the end of this. Now, I just want us to look at some of the experiences we have learned from the research. In Germany and in India, the case studies which were presented show that the small and micro enterprises are thriving. In India, we know that micro enterprises don't die easily because they may have in the form of financing from families or from wherever, which in Kenya, when you hear of family financing, you hear of businesses that have collapsed. I'm not saying that that is the truth, but that could be the case. Most of these family-run businesses in Germany and in India stay at a certain level and they are not struggling to get to another level because they are performing well at that level. Is it too easy to establish an SME in Kenya and maintain it? This is our concern. And I'm going to address this to Gashigi.
Thank you very much, moderator. I think when you look at the statistics, we saw in the beginning that the report shared that about 80% of all enterprises in the country are within this sector, or within this size. We should say the informal sector, which is defined for the most part by small size, micro enterprises. And it's not because, it's not necessarily choice, it's because if you're poor and you need to get ahead, you need to be able to set up some sort of a business or get employment somewhere with whatever's available, especially when there are no formal jobs available. So as to the question as whether we have too many of those enterprises or it's too easy, I think it should be made easy because people need something to be able to engage in. But then there needs to be subsequent support so that that industry is able to grow, that small company is able to grow in the manner that we need as an economy. A corollary piece of information related to the number of, or the percentage of small enterprises in the economy is that they employ 83% of the workforce. So again, underscoring the great importance of that sector in this country. And so within that context, I think the kinds of things that can help us to avoid this question of so many of them failing. In other words, they can easily begin, as you put it in your question, but then they really struggle to stay in business. Maybe you might find somebody starts a company in a certain sector, in a certain area. It could be catering, it could be whatever. And then very quickly they're unable to compete and they set up something else in whatever they're able to do. I think what the government is doing with this, especially in this sector, the construction sector, and what Mr. Kamau here represents in terms of opportunities within affordable housing being given, especially to the micro sector, is a very important step forward. And it's a model that many of us who are in industry and academia have been saying is necessary because, as the study will show, this is done in very many countries. So, you know, we find that in the Far East in particular, what Japan did a long, long time ago, because Japan, like Germany, has this very, very powerful sector that is small companies that are quite high-tech, that have grown from somewhere. They were not always there. And if you start coming towards us geographically, you'll see Korea followed what Japan did, and now it's the Malaysias, the Vietnams who are following. So we need to do what we've just heard is being done. And I think one of the things out of the pilot is to do the learnings, because if this is 14 floors, I don't know how many units. 1,370 units. And I think the target from the media is something like 500,000 units over time. I'm not sure exactly, but something on that level. So in other words, we're at the very beginning. So it's very important for us to now learn from whatever didn't work very well, and of course pick up on what did work and expand it. But I think that is a very, very important first step. And then those who benefit from government, because in any country the government is the biggest customer, can then maybe make room for others, and then they're better able to set up for themselves in the private sector. And so it's like a stepping stone into successful business, and some of them will grow large, some might not grow too well. But if we can follow up as well with a kind of incubation services that make sure that those small entrepreneurs understand how to do their taxes, how to do the accounting and all that, I think that's a very important add-on to make sure that the failure rate can be minimized.
So, without these micros joining hands together, and without affirmative action, I believe that this project in Ngara is because of government affirmative action to get the micros to be accepted by those internationals in order to operate. Now, you remember in the 70s, I'm not saying that I was there in the 70s as a businessman, but I do know and I do remember very well that the cooperative movement was highly developed in the 70s and the 80s in Kenya with the support of other international agencies and so on. And the reason for having the cooperatives, and which then culminated into the SACCOs, was to enable small to be enjoined to be strong, so that whether a teacher is earning 3,000 shillings, he or she is able to save 300 shillings per month. Gradually you get a loan from a SACCO and you are able to do something big. And in the same way, enterprises were joined in small cooperatives in order to have strength to do things. But it seems like the cooperative environment is very stressed in Kenya at the moment. Can Dr. Mbada, what is affecting the cooperation of small contractors and the material suppliers in order to penetrate, for example, these big projects?
We are talking about business for the benefit of the investor, and there is competition. Therefore, since we want to benefit alone, there may not be an incentive to want to join other people, to want to be united. But at the same time, we have learned of late that cooperating, linking horizontally and vertically has more benefits than challenges. The SACCO concept is working very well now, to the extent that most of the matatus, for example, although owned by different people, they share the same name. One of the problems that was being investigated in the research was establishment of linkages and networks. It was recommended that that should be encouraged, they should be brought together, and there will be benefits. They will even be able to raise finance. Finance was found to be one of the main challenges, but if they pull together, they can form even their own small banks. You start from the SACCO, savings, move to a bank for that particular sector, and we're talking about small and micro enterprises in the construction industry. Many of them, we have been told, will not be able to even quote correctly. If they came together, they'll be able to employ a quota there. Somebody who can estimate and quote for them. But if they do it alone, they'll make mistakes. So I would say, in summary, that they should not be driven by the individual benefit that they should look at, or should encourage them to look at the bigger benefits of being together. And for that reason, we may want to ask ourselves, how best can that be done? NCA was not there before 2011. It develops, coordinates activities in the industry. Why don't we do the same for the SMEs? We establish an authority that can guide them, that can direct them, that can develop them, just like NCA does for the industry, so that there is something formal. And the question is still that the informality. How can we make it formal? Formalizing the SMEs was one of the recommendations in the study, but how can it be done? I would imagine if a body was formed using a law and then having clauses for regulating, then we may be able to regulate the industry. We also need to know that Kenya is a small and young economy. We lack the culture of business. We are not used to linking ourselves with particular skills. In India, for example, there's they call it what? The caste system. If a family is a farming family, everybody remains a farmer. If they are business people, everybody remains a businessman. Engineers, in Germany also, there has been that inheritance of a particular skill and enterprise. For a very long time, these are very old economies. In Kenya, we lack that. And therefore, for us to fast track that kind of establishment of that mentality, we may need to have an authority.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That's important. I think it's mentioned in the research. I think Dr. Gashigi wants to contribute something because he is working on a formality, an enterprise which is trying to create some formality.
Yes, but I just wanted to point out that there is the Micro and Small Enterprise Authority within the Ministry of Industrialization, and I can see Mr. Engineer Karani there, who is from there, and I know that's their mandate, so that already exists.
Okay. Can you mention then how your gearbox is trying to institutionalize some strength into micro enterprises?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate to have been able to link with the Juakali sector more recently through the Kenya Commercial Bank Foundation. I think everybody's familiar with the branding called Tujiajiri. And so Tujiajiri targeted various sectors, catering, fashion and hairdressing and so on, but also artisans. And the artisans would be covering those who do mechanical type of work, but also very much woodwork, and both will apply to construction. And so in that whole, in the history of our involvement, we became very involved with some of the associations within Kariobangi and Kamkunji. Came to understand today that it was your thesis at the master's level that gave birth to the design for the Kamkunji sheds, which I found very interesting and well done. And so Mr. Mwema, who is here, and so on, we work with them to try to see whether one of the gaps that he mentioned is if you're given the job of doing a door and you don't have the equipment, you may be using methods that contribute to how late you might be in delivering and how accurate the kinds of things you described. So what we were thinking along the lines of solutions as Gearbox is to expand the range of equipment that we have in our space and allow access to the same people to come and use ours without having to buy at first. And they'll pay us per hour, per half day, whatever. Okay. And then after time, hopefully they'll get the wherewithal to buy their own equipment and take them to the sheds or wherever they have their premises. And now that we're working with MasterCard Foundation, which has also now expanded very greatly the Tujiajiri project to target 1.5 million jobs over 5 years. So it's a very ambitious project. We're working very close with the authority, the Micro and Small Enterprise Authority, to even look for sheds so that we can set up our workshops in various parts of the country so that the artisans can come and use that equipment. But a very important distinction that we're also applying here, because the primary membership at Gearbox has mostly to date been engineers, people who are trained on how to do design of equipment. And so we've challenged them to make the machines that we put on the shop floor. So to date we have CNC machines, the computer numerical control, which means, for those who are not aware, you have a computer design and then that is sent to the machine. So in the same way as you print a document, it's a very accurate representation of whatever is on the computer is reproduced on the material. And so we built a machine that can do that for metal, cutting metal, sheets and plates. It's called a plasma cutter, CNC plasma. The same machine can also be retooled to carve wood. So if you have a fancy kind of design you need on a piece of wood, you can represent it on the computer and move it onto the wood. Now the important part is that that machine is built by a Kenyan. And in our center now we have at least 10 engineers who each independently can build a machine like that. And that's important because if you only have one, then you won't get that. The market force is working in terms of what they charge.
Thank you, Dr. Gashege.
Thank you.
I think he's still speaking in tongues because he is mentioning CNC machine. Only some of us are privileged to have seen them. So my concern in this workshop is that we have very good ideas which are already incubated in the country and which we want to permeate to the 47 counties so that the Juakali in Mandera and the Juakali in Migori are also aware of these things. So I think this workshop is going to be one of the elements because I believe that these are being shared also through the national TV, etc., so that people can know out there that there are groups which can help you to improve your best. I wanted Tom here to mention why are then institutions like KIE, Kenya Industrial Estates, which were formed many years back? Why is KIRDI, Kenya Industrial Research Development Institute, and others, which are institutions intended to expand what I think Dr. Gashege is talking about, why have they not penetrated enough to change our poor systems in the micro enterprises so that the enterprises can stand and produce just like we have learned from India, Germany, etc.?
Thank you very much, moderator. I think in the presentation that Mr. Christopher put up, we saw that there were very many institutions that the moderator is referring to from a government perspective that are supposed to be supporting this sectors. I think for me, sometimes the gap that we face within Kenya as compared to sort of a place like Germany is the fact that some of the strategies don't always consider who are all the players, what their roles are, and finding a way of collaborating them together more effectively. Something that happens in Germany, which we would hopefully like to replicate, particularly with the successes of Ngokamka, would be how they have a cluster and a value chain system, in which that means that, for example, in the car manufacturing industry, they would create a cluster in one region that would then focus on adding different value chains into that cluster. So within that cluster, be it Bavaria, where there are a lot of cars, you would have a value chain for supplies that build within and around. You'd have institutions that are teaching around manufacturing, teaching around cutting edge kind of technology in and around that sector. So they almost build an entire ecosystem around a cluster and around a sector. I don't think we have that much participation as we would need. I think there's a lot of effort that is being done by NCA. I think something that, Dr. Dominic here mentioned was around the developing of standards. And I know from experience that they're working more closely with, for example, KEBS, to not only define what the standard door should be for big projects, but it's also understanding in terms of the certification that's required to ensure that. So for me, I think the first thing to answer you, moderator, is just more focused strategy and alignment of implementation. We can't have different institutions all trying to do the same thing but doing it separately. In that case, we're not able to build scale, we're not able to have the lasting impact, and also we're not able to learn from the things we've done. If we've already learned about something with KEBS, we're able to take that on board, and even the KIE is able to use that going forward, and it's not done in isolation.
Thank you. We are talking about KIE, and maybe many people in here don't know what KIE is. So as you go home, please search some of this and let us raise the questions in our minds. Why have these institutions of government not penetrated and changed the economic sector in the country? Because I think institutions are not lacking, but they have not delivered. So why? Does the legal environment and institutional framework in Kenya augur well for the operation and activities of SMEs? This question is going to be addressed by the panel here, but I believe that there are better informed persons on the audience who are going to respond to us on this question. But let me see who would want to touch anything, because I was asking Mr. Kamau here that when you tried to get the microenterprise to work with the Chinese company in Ngara, were they willing to work with them? Because if you quote international competitive bidding regulations or procedures, you can only take up a subcontractor who is qualified to do the work. And it is the prerogative of the contractor to accept the subcontractor. What legal frameworks can we use to support these micro-enterprises to work with the big companies? What legal frameworks can we use to allow them to borrow from KCB, to borrow from Equity, to borrow from APSA, etc.? I see now these banks, because of COVID, they have gone down and they use your M-Pesa to lend you money without collateral. But they only lend you enough, I think, to buy food. Well, we want these people to borrow so that they can do what? Enter the construction sector. So Mbata, do you want to address this issue of the legal frameworks that are there?
Maybe I'll start with
Sorry.
After him.
I'll start with the institutions. I'm surprised there is a department in the Ministry of, you said, Industrialization. And yet, it was not part of those that were mentioned in the research. I don't know. I thought it should be one of the first ones and the one empowered to lead the formalization. Yeah, that shows that there may be some institutions, there may be some laws, but for sure they have not been effective. Maybe there's no good political will. Maybe the people, the trade, the culture that we have, which is true, is that of white-collar jobs and not blue-collar jobs. I would then say that the legal framework, even if it was enough, there must be some independence of the institution that is implementing or that is putting into operation the law.
Okay. Thank you. I think before Kamau comes in, allow me to request a response from the plenary, and I'm going to ask the gentleman who is from that institution, the authority, to say something.
Good afternoon. It's a few minutes to afternoon. As you've heard, yes, there is an authority called Micro and Small Enterprises Authority. It is established by an act of parliament, Micro and Small Enterprises Act of 2012, now 55 of 2012. And the mandate is exactly as you are mentioning the challenges of the MSE sector, not only in the construction space, but across the different subsectors in the economy. What is the mandate of the authority? First is to coordinate all the activities of actors, both in private sector and in public sector, to support micro and small enterprises. Secondly is to regulate. And it is here in regulation that we are working hard to ensure we formalize. We now have a substantive registrar who can register micro and small enterprises and also their associations. Predominantly, the associations that exist across the country, because we have probably around 5,000 associations spread across the country of micro and small enterprises, have registered under the registrar of societies. But we are saying for it to be recognized that now the Kamukonji Juakali Association or Ngong Furniture Juakali Association or Karioko Juakali Association can now formally trade with government with the association, so that we formalize them at the micro level and then we bring them together within a cluster. These are mostly in furniture and they can be able to formally trade with government.
Thank you very much. I think, is there a lady who wants to respond on these legal frameworks? We said we had to generalize this discussion. May I request somebody from an institution that may be legal frameworks? Ladies going, we know we are in the construction sector, so in the construction sector there are not many ladies involved. Okay, gentlemen. Yeah. Please introduce yourself. I forgot to tell you to introduce yourself. Introduce yourself and then you make a quick response. Half a minute. The microphone is right next to you.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Engineer Gedeji Kihuga from State Department of Public Works. And my concern is on the small contractors, especially in the service industries. There is a worrying trend in the government where most of the projects, these small contractors are being engaged as domestic subcontractors, whereby you find that the main contractor, once he gets a job, he will finally sack these people and bring unqualified or people who are not really of quality material. So the life of these small contractors is at risk. In fact, we are on the verge of destroying the services industry because that legal framework, which is favoring domestic subcontracting instead of nominated subcontracting, is very worrying. And most of these people, NCA registers them, they renew their licenses, and they are not actually getting projects. Most of them are not even agreeing to do projects, because once they are, even they get engaged, the main contractor does not even pay them. So this is a worrying threat. As we deliberate on this, I think there should be a serious recommendation to discourage engagement of domestic subcontractors.
That is very critical, because affirmative action to support local enterprise does not mean we use that which we will not deliver. Okay, that's something, but I was, again, those questions are going to go to my friend on the other side, but not right now. I want us to then, from the plenary point of view, answer the question. And I'll ask somebody from Ngokamuka. The chairman of Ngokamuka is here. The trials of a Juakali enterprise when working with a big entity like the government, what are the trials of this entity, and how have you managed to stay open without closing business, trying to work with the government when you are expected to produce 2,000 doors, but you are only able to deliver 600 and the time is up? How have you managed to survive? Is the chairman here? Okay, representative. Who is somebody from authoritative from Ngokamuka? Or from another association? Yes, please.
Yes, my name is Eliud Bio. In Ngokamuka, I'm the finance director. I have my operations director here. The chairman is not there, but we shall represent him. So I'm going to talk specifically from your question, specifically terms finance. Because without proper payment, the Juakali people cannot work. Because initially, we as Ngokamuka, we had no money when we went to work with the Chinese. So we sat down, we developed our mode of payment, because we had to, as Kamal said, we had to get some deposit. And I want to maybe to mention here that the Chinese company, initially they thought that we would not be able to do the work, but as we progressed, they developed some interest in us. So the cash payment, the deposits and all that, although Mr. Kamal has mentioned that the money was not enough at any given point to do the task orders that we were doing, they were, at least they were able to pay promptly. So I think this is one positive thing, because the finances were flowing properly, not unlike the government. The government bureaucracy, when the Juakali people work in the take orders from the government, the payments are so much delayed. So I think that was one of the positive things, the Juakali, we as Juakali.
You had to receive some advance in order for you to operate.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to answer one question. Yeah. How are you managing on the side of quality? Because Mr. Kamau here raised the question that not all windows and doors you, as a company, you were able to deliver to the project were accepted on first delivery.
Yes, we have.
Can your technical person or any other person respond, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
I'm addressing not just in Ngokamuka, but many other enterprises that are suffering from delivering quality. And this is what Dr. Gashiri was talking about, getting machinery, getting a workshop where you can work well. What, for example, the technical university is trying to give Ngokamuka so that they can work at the technical university to produce quality. How many enterprises can do that? Yes, please, quickly.
Hello, my name is Peter Mamavaka. I'm operation director for that company. I was there on basic activities with Mr. Kamau and the Chinese. So what these three Juakalis, what we are doing, after giving the order and we get the money, we have to define the orders first. And each cluster is a day to bring their materials. So when they came, first we checked with Mr. Kamau, and then the final checkup was Chinese technical engineers. So many of materials before were rejected because we are not meet the qualities. And then with the time, we learned what Chinese need, and we followed them. Even we took them to the workshop to teach our fundis there. So we learned it because before Chinese were not able, they don't want to work with us. But with the time, they cooperated with us and we became friends. So they was also to go to the little workshop, Kariobangi, Kamukunji, and Gong. They started training our people so that we bring the quality things to the site. And actually, that's what helped us mostly. Block A, we had a very big challenge with them, but B and the rest, actually we tried our level best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Masu, you are trying to use Joakali by training them so that they can deliver quality. And the trainings are very short. Are you able to say that with the kind of training which the technical university has expended or has given Ngokamuka and the related small companies, they are now able to deliver quality? There's a microphone right here. Professor Masu is behind you.
Thank you. Let me say this. When they came and the issues were pointed to them, they did the correction and they were able to deliver and on time and organize themselves. At TUK, when we train these people, they go back and there's a change. In fact, when we went to Kariobangi, there was one gentleman there who set his own rig and he could work throughout the night. And the following day, deliver. So I saw change of attitude. And since you have also asked me to say something, can I also add something? The biggest problem we have in the informal sector is change of attitude. I was at the helm when we were doing the University of Nairobi Towers. I was the construction manager. That project was divided into 3 phases or schedules, work schedules of 8 hours each. You get in the morning at 7, you spend your 8 hours, that group goes, another one comes, spend 8 hours, that group goes, another one comes, spend 8 hours. Those are 24 hours in one day. That project, which was supposed to take 2 years, the first 10 months, we did the 2 basements down there and the structure all the way to the 23rd floor, including the L-pad. 10 months. Why? There was change of attitude. Those who are working, the Chinese company which was there, they are willing to work day and night. Are we ourselves willing so that we compete with them?
Thank you.
And they were telling me, we cannot do it. And I told them, we shall do it. I was on call for 24 hours. I would be there at midnight to check what is going on. So are the architects. The architects were also 3 shifts, the engineers in 3 shifts, and I was also available for the 3 shifts. First, we change attitude. 2, the next thing is the question of which you have talked about, that is engagement in business. If you are sole proprietor, you have limitations. So much that even the business community outside there, the banks have got no trust in you. Why? The risk is very high. If I come and I find that you are not there in the office and you are the only one in that office who can give instructions, orders, or anything that is related to the business, I will not trust you if you are not there. But if we are 3 or more, there is trust. Why? The risk is not there. And that is where we also need to train the people in the informal sector to learn to work together and trust. So joint ventures becomes the order of the day. which must be legalized in one way or another so that people do not get out, get the money and disappear.
Thank you, Prof. I'm going to have those two now. The third one, somebody else is going to raise. Now, we are running, we have not too many minutes left, and I want a lady from the consultant sector to answer the question. Do we have a lady architect here or quantity surveyor or those who are interested in the building industry? Now, the question that I have is, we who are in the consultancy are too harsh for the informal sector. I am. Because if it is not straight, it is not straight. If it's not square, it's not square. And I expect the Juakali to read my drawing and produce that, even though when I did the drawing, I wasn't sure it can be done. Now, can I get a lady who is in the construction sector who can comment on the challenges of the Juakali when we are addressing quality? But I don't get a lady, I will ask a man. Is a lady somewhere? Okay, please. Introduce yourself, please, and go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Judith Limungi. I'm in the structural engineering. I work for National Housing Corporation. Actually, like what you have said, it is basically about the attitude. We have a mentality that the people in the SMEs may not do the work well. So I would really encourage most the consultants to at least include a clause in their tender documents that even if it's a window or a lock should be supplied by the SME so that we can also promote them and so that we can also be together. Thank you.
All right. That is going to change international tendering procedures. Okay. Very important. I don't want us to belabor that point unless you want to extend. This gentleman's hand has been up many times. Please let him contribute. And now I want solutions, because we are coming to the end of the discussion. Yes, please.
Hello. Okay, my name is George Okari. I'm a chairman of a service cooperative. Like you said, how could the cooperative movement be able to be introduced so that people are able maybe to work as a team? So I'm here to confess and confirm that we, after a lot of struggle, we have managed to register an organization called Funditech Service Cooperative that is now registered with the ministry, and we are in the building and construction space trying to offer quality services. For the number of years I've been in the building and construction industry, I can be able to confess here that quality workmanship has been the biggest challenge. I have been in this industry for 22, 23 years. And now, the solutions I would quickly be able to give from my experience, number one, if the trainer is not practical, there is the biggest gap. There is no way a theoretical trainer is going to deliver a practical product. The trainers must be practical. If they are not going to make an effort to become practical, then the gap between blue against white collar will still exist. So the people who are training must be able to soil themselves down to be able to make the people down there understand how things are done. You cannot put on a suit and go to site and start telling people stories that you cannot be able to do. That's a huge gap. Number two, when we are talking about Juakali and micro and small entrepreneurs, there is some little bit of confusion. Juakali, like Mr. Mbata put it, is believed informal, and people have refused to move out of informal. What effort is the government doing to be able to make people transit from informal to formal? I mean, we keep on talking Juakali. We do not have a boundary where we are able to define that somebody moved from informal to formal. That is something the government must be able to address. Now, in these micro and small entrepreneurs, as the word puts it, there is an entrepreneur. This is a business person. This business person must be split from the service provider. In Juakali, if I own a workshop of welding, I am an entrepreneur. But I should not be able to be mixed with the welder who is coming to provide services. And this is what Funitech Service Cooperative is trying to eliminate. Let the service provider be technically empowered to be able to help the entrepreneur be able to deliver. That is why our friends get those challenges. You've been given a contract, but do you have data? Do we have manpower that are able to help you deliver? Because if you become the owner and it's assumed that you're going to deliver using rocket science when we don't have the technical service manpower to be able to help you deliver, then you're not going to deliver that project.
Thank you. Thank you.
So finally, just a small thing is KEPS. How are we standardizing services? TVET is doing a great thing to come up with that continuous way of trying to. Do we have, materials have already been standardized. How are we standardizing our services so that now you combine standard products and standard services for you to be able to deliver a standard product? Thank you so much. I would have talked more, but because of time, let me leave it at that. Thank you.
I was expecting that you were going to say that the designs that come out are not standardized also. When we went to school, we had HD4 windows and this kind of windows which were British. Now, the architects make windows using a French curve. You know what a French curve is? You can take any shape, and the Juakali struggles the whole day, can't get that window to be done. So we must address, I think, some of the points he has raised there, but we are coming to an end, and I want institutions that are going to change here. No, I'm going to give you a chance, but I want the PS talked about the environment of the micro enterprises being not right. And I know there are regulating authorities here about environment. If they find you welding on the roadside, and woe unto you if your car is broken and it's being repaired on the roadside, it will be towed away. If you are running a business and you are selling tomatoes on the roadside next to a regulated shop, you are likely to survive, and then the shop will close because you are selling without paying any taxes. You can therefore pay less. These are the challenges of the informal sector and the challenges of those who are in the formal sector in Kenya. Now, I want only to take 3 more contributions from the floor, and they have to be 1 minute each. The gentleman in white, please introduce yourself and the institution.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Malay Ndiwa. I'm the Managing Director of Bola Properties. And I must start by thanking NCA for bringing all of us together in this dissemination workshop. You have rightly said that we need to give solutions, because most of the issues that have been raised are problematic, but we need to give solutions. Our first solution is about the mass production. And this has been a theme which sometimes we are ignoring, but it is important even for Juakali to know that for us really to be in the right table, we need to start thinking about mass production of these materials, elements, and services. The second thing which is very important is to mention that the place of the universities is very important. And I want to congratulate the Technical University of Kenya. I think you are leading by example. And when we came there, we are working very closely with a company in Germany. And I wish we had the time to show you guys what the Germans are currently doing to have mass production of these construction elements. Because without looking at the issue of quality, you forget about it. These Chinese are super smart. We are talking about the 40% local content. But guess what? The next thing the Chinese are going to do is they are registering these companies as local companies. And they will come to the ministry and grab the tender as a local company. And legally, there is nothing you will do about it. So we need to look at the 40% local content vis-a-vis the Chinese.
And lastly?
And lastly is about the sibling rivalry between these government institutions. I had one of the most funny comments during the launch of the strategic plan for KBRC. That is the Kenya Building Research Center. And they said that the most lazy government official is posted at KBRC. And it was just a joke. And then I wondered, why is it that we have all these institutions? We have KIRDI, we have KIE, we have now NCA, and this research does not translate to development and actual execution. There must be a linkage problem somewhere. So as panelists, as highly respected professors, we need to know where is the linkage between what the research are doing and the actual development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I believe that NCA has linked us today, and this must go forward for sure. With, okay. Okay, in which case you are ambushed that side. That gentleman, Nabutola, is...
Thank you, Prof. Wafula Nabutola is chairman of the Building Surveyors Registration Board, brand new board. But the thing I was raising is, why don't we have people educated to degree level if they're Masons? You just said in Germany, Vietnam, where, what? Family. So if somebody is very competent in masonry or carpentry or whatever it is, why do they have to? In Kenya, we don't have such degrees, do we? That to me is a big deal. That people, we say, you have to remain low. Utakaa tu huko. Utakuwa mason. And in any case, even the people who got a D or Division 3, their level of development maybe has not been reached yet. So if they are given the opportunity, they can get those degrees we are talking about. Why do we have to condemn them to village polytechnics? I think that's one of the challenges that we are facing. And I can say many more things, but I'll say something about the Building Surveyors Registration Board, brand new, and our brief is about maintenance. And most of the research, as you'll check, is nothing to do with maintenance. We design, we build, basi. And that usually takes a maximum of 2-3 years, at the most 5 years. The rest of the time is for why that asset was developed. It has to be maintained. I'm not aware of any building, including this one, that doesn't have a maintenance requirement. We need to go towards that direction, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
In other words, we need even training on maintenance, a critical. Now, we have, these gentlemen are going to have to give a minute each of contribution, but which hand has been most, I'm looking for a young contributor from the board. I think you're young enough to contribute as the last one. I know there were students in here who have not made contributions, but you can bear with us. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Bwana Chair. My name is James Odongo. I'm in charge of research and advocacy at AAK. And so in terms of solutions, of course, you as a planner, you know that the whole idea of planning for informality is just a change of narrative, a change of thought. of demystifying the narrative that SMEs and related staff are all informal. Of course, we have to understand that they have their way of running the system. So how about establishing a sustainability index? Why should we have businesses going down after every 1 or 2 years? Can we just develop some sort of a sustainability index that would help them SMEs to go through the tides? If it's some sort of a management index, a financial management index, let us have structures that would ensure that the SMEs, despite the challenges, be it in terms of us failing to achieve the local content requirements, of course there's the issue of corruption, which for some convenient reason we've avoided to talk about. Yeah, it's really a killer to the SMEs. It takes the form of delayed payments, pending bills and stuff, even getting the contracts per se. So let us be deliberate.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You would allow that we don't take any more hands from the floor? It's important. Okay. Please pass. Who is sanitizing the microphones? Okay. Please introduce yourself and.
Thank you, Chair.
You are important, so can you stand so that people can see you?
Good. My name is John Kabuye. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Green Building Society. Now, my contribution, I'll go straight to the point, solutions. And I think one of the solutions has been said by the gentleman from Gearbox. We need industrial estates for the Jua Kali. Why am I saying so? Because most of these gentlemen or ladies may never afford this equipment, but they have big orders. So this is an example probably maybe we may not replicate from Germany because access to finance there is different from here. So what do we need? We need those estates where people can actually access these machines. When they access these machines, as far as quality is concerned, the machines can give them the precision needed, and then there can be an administrator who can charge an admin fee just to make sure that you meet those specific standards. And that way, we can be able to set them in so many places, even not necessarily in Nairobi, but even as far as at the river, and we can also be able to set up affordable housing there. You hear people setting up houses in different places, and you ask yourself, where will the people living in those specific places work from? And most of the time, it's the lower people, the people in the lower cadre. So we need to be very practical and solution-oriented. We need to see how many industrial estates, how many doors can they produce per day, and then also need to know the demand and supply. That way, as a nation, we can be able to know that we need maybe 60 industrial estates of this capacity producing this many doors or many windows per day or per hour, and then after that, we can now get the data also to even plan for future generations. Thank you.
I hear you saying that the housing agenda must be related to the employment agenda. Where is the housing and where are the people going to work? Where is the housing located? Where are the people going to work? Now, if the people have where to work, then material production would start going up and the importation will go down. I thought so. That's what we learned. I'm going to ask a special contribution from the National Environment Authority, if they have anything to say, because I see a participant from National Environment Authority who is also in the research teams here. Is it one of the regulatory authorities that are making SME setups difficult or agreeable? Dr. Ann, would you like to say something?
Thank you for the opportunity. I was hoping that I would stay silent through the day and speak tomorrow when it comes up. My name is Nyatichi Omambia, Chief Compliance Officer and Climate Change Coordinator of NEMA. NEMA has a mandate to coordinate and supervise all matters related to the environment. And that's a broad mandate. And SMEs, or in general, we all operate within the environment. And the only statement I would say is that it has been reiterated here on the need for change of attitude, and attitude comes from perception. How do you perceive the environment in the construction center? Do you just perceive it as a source of raw materials and to absorb your waste, or do you perceive it as a capital good which you also cost? That for it to sustain your business in perpetuity, all aspects from the production, from design actually, when you think that I'm going to make this building in this shape, how can you redesign it to make it better suited to the environment such that you're able to use probably in this current setup less lighting, more natural cooling, less carbon footprint in that regard, and the waste produced, for example, if I could customize to this sector, how can that particular SME be able to operate within an environment where its byproducts are fit for the environment, that they're not returned, the sustainability of it all comes to how we make it. So as a regulator, our role is to ensure that you operate in a clean and safe environment. It is enshrined as a right in the Constitution of Kenya. We all are entitled to the right to a clean and healthy environment, and that we have the responsibility to keep it so. That clause is in the Constitution, and we are all players in sustaining our environment by ensuring that we are able to operate within not only the precincts of the law, but within the precincts of the environment, because nature tends to fight back when you are not being kind to it. So your waste, if you are operating using either hazardous wastes, or even if they are wood chippings, if they are poorly disposed, they actually become a challenge. And they can actually be plied back to provide for us biomass, which we so need, through a jiko, which I saw here, that is able to use less efficient, less fuel wood. So it is that whole circular economy approach where you're able to sustain your raw materials to the very end, including your own occupational health and safety for perpetuity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What people don't know is that this building, the ceiling up here is made of waste material, which has been compacted to make these boards, which are used up here. They are not made in Kenya. They're made somewhere. So as we look at the waste we generate on our sites, it can become an asset if we have industries to do it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have covered a good amount of discussion this morning on SMEs. I want to give this gentleman here a minute each to answer the last question of this day. And this is a question which has already been answered. So if you think the question has been answered, you don't have to answer it. It is argued that the quality of MSME's products in Kenya is wanting. What is your opinion on this? And are there ways which we can improve? And I want to combine it with products and services from the SMEs that they are wanting. And I'm going to start from my colleague, right, Dr. Mboto?
Thank you, Moderator, for the chance. To a great extent, the quality of the services and the products offered is wanting, and probably that is actually contributed by the low skills that are possessed by the tradesmen that are working in the industry. And the problem can be alleviated through upskilling of the tradesmen. Then I want to answer one of our delegates from Survey Board who raised a concern on career pathways. Now, in Kenya, we have a national qualification framework, which is barely 5 years old, and this framework provides pathways for everybody. If you happened to drop before you cleared your standard 8, you have a pathway all the way to PhD. If you dropped at Form 4 like that, you still have the same. I know of a PhD holder in Sia County who is actually a principal who started with either craft or an artisan certificate and is now a PhD holder. So there are pathways for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, Sakamau.
Thank you, moderator. It is true most of the products that come from Juakari are wanting, and my own considered view is that they lack the proper and necessary equipment to produce these products. And I would actually urge that this equipment is provided to them, and I'm glad our colleague here, Dr. Kamau, asserted that they are making arrangements to provide these people with the necessary equipment at a fee, so that next time they're given a job, they're able to produce, to have quality in their products.
Thank you. Let me go to Dr. Mbada.
Sorry, thank you. I would like to say that it is true their services, their products are wanting. Since yesterday we have been talking about, yesterday we talked about alternative building materials. It is very clear that most of these materials are handled by the SMEs, who we have said and agreed that they lack training, they lack finance, they lack equipment. So in the absence of training, in the absence of finance, in the absence of equipment, in the absence of standardization, in the absence of quality control of their products, what do you expect? Poor quality. Thank you.
Okay, do you agree, Dr. Magara?
I'm not a doctor, unfortunately.
Don't worry, you will be. You have already been given a career path.
I have been. I think the spectrum of MSMEs is very broad. I do think there are some on the informal or even small that might be producing quality that's poor, but I think there are also a lot that produce a good quality, and it could be on the services side that you mentioned, because I know there are a lot of the engineers and architects who also do their own consulting, and I think that forms part of the sort of MSMEs. So I do think there's a spectrum, and it just requires what's needed for each of them is different. For those who are struggling Juakalis, we've talked about the kind of support that's needed, but then I think for those who are good, I think there's also a need to just ease the operating environment so that they can just get on and move on.
Thank you very much. And Gearbox.
Yes, thank you, sir. So I'd like to just say I agree with all the comments with regard to the quality, and so I won't add to that, but I'd like to just talk a little bit about how, again, to emphasize how important I think the model that's been set up by NCA and the ministry with regard to the affordable housing, how important it is to build our capacity for industrialization. Giving jobs to Juakali through the orders is extremely important. Buying the equipment that allows us to aggressively, and I underscore the word aggressively, expand the range of things that can be supplied by the Juakali sector. So if it's the windows and they reject the quality of the windows currently being made, the government then can invest in the machines to make the kinds of windows you mentioned, as you gave an example, and then give access to those same people and training to be able to deliver the right kind of window, and on and on and on to the sockets in the walls, and so that we ride on our own money, because it's our own money, to build our industrialization. Each apartment, we made an estimation, takes about 3.2 tons of steel. that if you add to the 500,000 or whatever number of units in total, is enough to allow us to put up a steel plant, an integrated steel plant, which has already been a plan in Vision 2030 but was dropped on our own market. In other words, that none of the steel should come from outside because of the projects that we have. So I believe that we're on the way to getting to where we need to be in the longer run. I think there was somebody who raised the question around informal to formality, how that transfer should be sort of facilitated. And I think these kinds of examples are already doing that. Because anybody who has an order becomes registered, they have to pay tax, it's known how much they earned and so on. But because they're getting much more business than before, I don't think they mind paying tax. Last point, please. With regard to NITA, NITA also has moved into this space. I think it's excellent to see TUK doing it, Gearbox is doing it. All the institutions should be opening their doors to their own engineers who are trained to the graduate level, but also to the Juakali. And with NITA, the same is true. We just did an agreement with the Kenya National Federation of Juakali Associations for them to be able to bring their members to the Mombasa Center, which is very well equipped. And we want, after that pilot, to bring it to the other centers. We have 5 centers across the country. So just to say that I think this is a very good start on the journey towards industrialization and jobs through industrialization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As the moderator, I just want to conclude by saying, I think we have had a good kind of scope this morning. We have covered virtually all the areas we wanted to address, but just one thing I wanted you to consider as you leave here. What is your attitude, you, of the Juakali or to the Juakali or the SMEs? If you are in the building industry and your specifications for the works you are doing are all based on materials which are not manufactured here, your attitude to the Juakali is very bad. True. Aluko bond can never be produced in Kenya. As of now, it is not. That is the cladding material. In other words, you are building, if you are building, you want it to be cladded or to be covered from outside. You are built and you want it to be covered from outside with cladding, which is manufactured in Germany or in China. Your attitude to the Juakali is not right, because there are alternatives to covering that building that are acceptable and can be produced with Kenyan industry. Secondly, if your attitude towards these groups when they come to work hand in hand is not supportive, somebody mentioned here the issue of cooperatives. Cooperatives made the tea industry to function, the coffee industry to function. It must be the same way it will make the building industry to function. So let's support this. And lastly, if the Juakali and those who are working in the SMEs are not trained, if they don't have skills, they would not be able to give you products and services which are not wanting. This has come out also very clear. So I think NCA is going to compile the report. We have seen in South Africa, they have challenges, the same they have in Egypt, the same they have in India. In fact, in India, I saw that 94% of SMEs are not registered. You didn't see that. I saw that. So we can do everything with these Juakalis. At least what I know is I live in a house built by Juakali. Thank you very much, and I want to wish you well.
Thank you very much, Daktari, Jason, and your team. We have done pretty well. So I would like us to give them a better clap. Want to go? Good. Good. It was uncoordinated, but it's fun. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you'd want to sincerely appreciate that a lot of good work has happened since morning. good work in the sense that we have committed ourselves to knowledge and to learning. There's a lot of learning that is happening here. And this speaks to, there's a lot of innovation, a lot of commercialization of very many ideas that are coming up here that can be picked up by any one of us. I would be very glad one day to meet one of us who says, I have such a big enterprise, such a big venture, courtesy of an idea that developed in my mind when we met at Crown Plaza to discuss research information. And that person possibly will be like Dr. Kamau, who will be employing several Kenyans or enabling several Kenyans to access opportunities for growth. Him he employs, but he also enables other employers to also continually employ by facilitating them with the kind of machinery and incubation services that are required to advance this sector. So to all our panelists and also our chief guest in absentia, we are very grateful for making this second day a big event so far. I can see we are doing well. We were challenged not only to trend, but again also to implement that which is making us to trend. And I'm happy to note that so far I think we are ranking as number 5 in terms also of what is happening here. So let's continue to disseminate, diffuse this very important innovation and information that is coming across. So there's a challenge for all of us, to institutions that are regulating professionals or coordinating professionals, IEK, IQSK, AEK, all of us are here. There's something we can do with this kind of information. For manufacturers, for contractors, for SMEs, there's a lot that we can actually do. Now, we are coming to a very good ending of today. We are slightly behind schedule by about 15 or 20 minutes or so. But now we are being given some guidance, given we are a big number. So we'll proceed for lunch, but in stages. And I will invite our manager for research and business development, who will guide us how we can proceed for lunch in stages. But in the meantime, there was an element of customization. Yeah, is it? No, mass production actually. Mass production is something that was mentioned here by our friend, the director from Bola. We have worked with them a lot in the last 2 years in this space of ABTs. But again also, because I'm a researcher and actually focus on construction innovation and manufacturing innovation, I've studied a lot the model of German. There's another word they haven't used so far. It's called German Mittelstand. If you know that valley, compare so closely with Silicon. In Silicon Valley, what spurs innovation is actually venture capitalists. But the model of Germany is slightly different. It's not really about putting money, through venture capitalists, but these are family businesses which have done very well because they focus a lot on innovation and some of the concepts that are being brought about by Mr. Allow me to say, by Bola. So there's a small video that is coming from Germany, and happily we have some German viewers who have been following this event. From last week to yesterday, they were really asking for the link. They got the link and they've been following us. So as we proceed for lunch, those who would like to just observe something small in regards to mass production, you can put back. It's a 6-minute video. You can see what is happening in Germany and how German firms are actually succeeding in the space of small and medium enterprises and again across the family-owned businesses, which in Kenya, I think it's only the Indians who are succeeding in that space and not maybe all of them. It's something that we may want to learn. Is a key area of research, family businesses, and I think we can watch it. So Steve, I welcome you to come and give us maybe a closing prayer and again also guide us. Steve is our manager for research and business development. This activity that we are doing falls squarely under his department, and he's the man who has enabled us to be seated here because of his very good work as our manager for research and business development. So we appreciate you, Steve. You have done a good job, and I appreciate your secretariat. Karibu sana.
Thank you, GM. Thank you for your leadership, and I think for the session today. As we close, mine is just to guide us on how we are going out for our lunch. We've been requested by the hotel that we do not go all at once because of the COVID regulations that have been passed. And the appeal is that we can go desk by desk. Maybe we can have the last two desks to go ahead, and then we can follow just like that until we are able to reach the front. That's why we'll be able to run that video so that you can also keep yourself busy as the others have gone ahead to serve lunch. So you'll allow me to make a short prayer for the lunch, then you can be able to listen to the video. Thank you, our King and our God who art in heaven. We lift your name and we praise you, Lord, because of your love and care. King of all glory, it's been a good day. You've shared with us, you've enlightened our minds with the discussions that have been going on since morning up to now. Father Lord, now we are going to enrich our bodies by the food that we've been provided, by your goodness and by your grace, Lord. We pray that this food can be of good to our bodies and be of health in our minds and our bodies, Father. Thank you, Lord, for listening to us this day. And we pray all this, Lord, because we believe in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. So I'll welcome the technical team to project the video. Meanwhile, I think we can start with the back. Let's have the last two desks proceeding for lunch. We'll collect your vouchers on the door as you go out. Thank you. And also I'm reminded tomorrow we still have sessions. We are closing for the day today, but tomorrow we still have a session, and tomorrow's session will be very, very interesting. We are discussing construction waste. So I'm welcoming all of us for tomorrow's session. Thank you.
Thank you. I should take your number here.
Watu wangu wa mjei, strong. Unajua kurejista na NCA, National Construction Authority, inamaanisha nini?
Inamaanisha umetambulika kama fundi wa mijengo hodari kulingana na ujuzi wako.
Inamaanisha umesimamiwa kiafya, kikazi, kimalipo na kisheria kote Kenya.
Inamaanisha pia umeaminika. Wewe sio fundi bandia na kwa hivyo utaitiwa kazi mingi.
Be sure, Jenga Smart, to ensure the safe construction of all residential, commercial structures, roads and other works. The National Construction Authority is directing all contractors to be registered with and workers accredited by the authority to ensure compliance with the construction regulations of Kenya. Reach our customer care team on 0709 126 173, 0709 126 102 and 0709 126 172. National Construction Authority. Building a strong Kenya.